Let's record. Yep. Thanks for the confirming that you can see. Yeah. So as always, if you have any questions, just fire off in the chat and I'll respond. So last week we talked about UX design. So this week we're going to talk a bit more about UI design, right? So I'll just get started. I think there's quite a lot of slides for us to run through today. So this one I introduced myself already. So I graduated recently, and then I enjoy doing UI UX work. Yeah. So definitely enjoy doing beautiful apps and so on. So last week we talked about user experience design and UI design, right? And user interface design. So we've established that UX is really about designing the full end-to-end experience for users, right? From when they first find out about a company all the way to they become a loyal customer of the company, right? This is the UX design you are going for. Whereas UI design is more about what you're interfacing with. So UI may not necessarily be like a mobile interface or like a web interface and so on. It may be, like I said, like a table even. It's also a user interface. So long as something that the user interacts with as part of the product, that is a part of the UI, right? So why do we need to bother about the UI design? Like why is it even important? Some guys may be wondering, like, okay, my app works, that's enough, right? So the fact is that like I talked about last week, is that nowadays UI design and UX design is what makes or breaks a product, right? More or less, people can have the same ideas around the world. So what they're really competing with is really about how unique the experience, how pleasant, how surprising the experience that they can provide. And the interface is part of it. So the fact is that normally UI, users actually form their first impression of your app in the first 50 milliseconds, not even seconds, right? So like in the first 50 milliseconds, they more or less have an impression of how good your app will be. And this impression is very hard to change. So actually UI is very important because that's the first thing they see, right? You come in, they see something impressive, and then they have a positive experience from there on. But if it looks ugly, unfortunately, it won't be very pleasant for them, right? It will be very hard to change their impression. So this is why it's very important, right? And of course, so what exactly makes UI design good, right? The key factors, right? It's actually quite similar. It's exactly the same as UX design. But ultimately, it boils down to the same factors, which is that it must firstly meet the needs. It must be easy to use and easy to learn, right? So ideally, is that you don't need like a user guide, or don't need like any instructions on how to use, right? They look at it, they know how to use already. You should give the user some freedom and control over what they can do. So you're not like restricting them too much. And of course, it should be surprising and delightful if possible. But the first three factors are the most important ones. Yeah. And so this is the harsh truth, and this is what I'm also sharing today, is that UI design is unfortunately not easy, right? Unless you had some past experience with design, like you guys had like film experience, you may have like a art experience, you may have done art before before coming to uni. Generally, it's very hard to pick up design. To me, I think it's easier to learn coding than to learn how to design, right? In the sense that getting the design sense. So unfortunately, design sense is very hard to develop, I feel. But then for those so some guys will like, okay, but I don't think I'm that good at design. So am I just not going to do design ever? Or is everything I'm going to build not going to look nice from now on? The answer is that there are ways around it. Right. And one way is definitely to me is to learn and observe how others are doing things. Right. So to some extent, UI UX, right, really is about making sure that you suit the needs of the people in this current time and age. Right. So trends change, right? What used to look very modern like 20 years ago may actually look very, very outdated and like old-fashioned now. Right. So UI and UX, unfortunately, something that keeps evolving, right? And you basically have to keep learning and keep doing. And I think it's possible to actually observe and learn how others are doing things, and from there actually, kind of like pick up a design sense, in the sense that you can actually see and replicate what people out there are doing, right? So you can't really expect yourself to be. I don't expect most people to actually be able to pioneer new types of UI or UX, right? It's not impossible, but you require some sort of luck and ability. So for example, like the iPhone and iPods, right, and so on, they really changed how people interact with their phones, right? The whole touchscreen mobile phone and so on. That was life changing, and that changed basically the UX for phones from there on, right? So this is something is very a bit too revolutionary for most people. So for the most part, actually observing people and learning how they're doing things is the way to go. And the truth is that the imitation is actually one of the best ways to get started. So I'm not saying that you should be copying people. I call copying what people are doing, but you can look at what they're doing and get inspirations, right? If you look at what you see something that's very impressive, right? Maybe you can get started by just replicating what they're doing first, and then from there, you learn the techniques, learn what is it that makes this design so appealing to people, and then you take out parts of it, and then you can maybe take out parts from many different places and compose it into another new and unique experience. So for many even for beginner artists, right, or new artists, right, not just in the UI but like I think in general, I think imitation is a very good way to get started. And normally a lot of people, they learn by copying first, and after a while, after you do this kind of copying, you start to see like what you're good at, what you're not good at, and then you find out how is it they can develop your own style. So that's more or less like the art, the way of art also, right? So I think UI UX is okay. Of course, if you're building a commercial product, please don't go and copy people's ideas and just use them directly. Okay, if you're building like a personal project or like you're not making money from it, I think it's okay to replicate here and there. So that you can see online, a lot of people do like Trello clones. They build like they build like clones of applications like what like Instagram clones. They build like Facebook clones. They build like basically like a copy of a existing product. Right. Actually, in the process of doing that, actually you learn a lot. But what is it that they're thinking about? What are these UX designers, UI designers? What are they considering when they're doing this kind of designs? So actually, it's a learning process as well. Okay, so that's enough about talking. So I think some feedback I got from the last lesson is that it's a bit too much text and kind of got a bit boring after a while. So today I will try to use more example-driven teaching. I'll try to show more examples than to actually talk like too much text. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do moving forward. So these are a few things I want to cover today. There's a lot of stuff on this screen. I know. I just need to go quite quickly. But to me, I categorize them as three types, as three things I want to cover. So one is the art elements. So these are more general concepts in art, right? It's like a lines, right? Lines can be like a line in a painting, can be a line in sculpturing, right? Sculpting, right? It may not necessarily be a line in UI UX design, right? But nevertheless, it's an art element, right? Of course, there's UI elements, so stuff that's specific to UI design, right? Like buttons, icons, and so on. Then, of course, ultimately, it's the design principles, right? Underlie all these kind of things, right? What are the principles they want to apply? So I hope that after I go through these examples, I don't think you guys will be able to like fully absorb everything. I think even if I'm like new to design, I go through this like a 2-hour course. You can't expect me to become like an artist after 2 hours, right? But what I'm hoping to be able to do is to inspire everyone, to give people ideas, right? But what they can do for their project. Like I said, ultimately, design is something you have to keep practicing. You cannot become a designer overnight. You can't expect yourself to build beautiful stuff overnight, right? You have to keep practicing. And I hope that these examples I go through give you inspiration for what I can try to do. Right? And after you keep trying a lot of different things, sooner or later you'll find what is it that you like and what is it that you enjoy doing. Like which kind of design you really prefer, then you can go down the path and try to sharpen and hone the specific type of design that you like. Right. Okay, I hope that's my ideal outcome. Okay. So let's get started. So first is art elements, right? So if I ever unsure what I'm going through at the point, you can look at the bottom left. There's the art. I'll put what is it that I'm going through at the point. So first thing is lines, right? With any art, there's always starts from lines. So many types of lines, right? There are like very thin lines, there are thick lines, even thicker lines, there's wavy lines, curvy lines, there's zigzags. All of these have a certain impact on how people perceive things, right? So generally nowadays you see is mostly straight lines, which basically kind of give very good structure and direction. Whereas like wavy lines tend to make people feel more like it's more harmonious in a sense. Then zigzag, of course, it feels a bit more impactful, and sometimes it can also give people like can point to things and have impact. But maybe let's go through the examples. So let's take a look at the first example here. So you can see actually over here, this example is quite simple. There's like a few main lines on the screen. More or less, it does give you it gives a sort of flow, right? So like it's quite eye-catching firstly. The lines kind of more or less they stand out from the rest of the page, right? And more or less they can tell you like you should continue going down. You should look at the left. You can go up and so on. It gives direction. In this case, it establishes some sort of direction, right? Then of course, it's very hard to analyze lines by themselves. It normally comes together to form a larger picture. Over here, you can see that these lines actually help to do segment the page into multiple sections, right? So more or less, this gives a page structure as well. In this case, of course, the lines here, they act as a nav bar. This is more of an icon. And of course, the lines here are like arrows and so on. So more or less, even this is also like a line, right? It's like a shape formed by lines lah. But more or less, what I'm looking more at is this 3 lines here, which gives the page like structure and help to kind of like, separate things out and spread them out across the page. Of course, this example, this is a bit more cool, a bit more stylish, right? There's a very thick line over here that acts as a mask, right? So behind it is an image that's been masked up by this line. So this is also a line in a sense. It's a very thick stroke, right? Of course, the rest of the page also has lines. There's this line here, which acts as a divider, which also gives balances out the page, right? There's also this like lines in the background, which quite stylish and gives also looks quite nice. But more or less can tell that these lines are of course less important because they're more fade out and so on. But this goes more into colors already. Yeah, and then there's also other parts of the page. So this is all quite interesting. You can see the lines also they're also using lines here for the dividers, which is fine. So it helps to separate out content, like I said. And in this case of this article that's shared here, you can see that there's this border around here, right? So it may look negligible. You might think like, okay, I mean, width of your border, like, it doesn't really matter. But actually, it does matter. This is make it very clear. This is like an item in its own. And second is clear demarcation of what is the post, right, that's being posted, and what is the content that's being shared here. So I mean, these are all very subtle things, but lines have played a role in all these kind of things, right? Of course, there's also wavy lines, right? In this app, there's a very curvy line. There are very, very nice curvy lines in the background. Sure, the background may look good even without these curvy lines, but this also gives a certain artistic feel to it. So it's very hard to, I think it's very hard to like put into words what is the artistic impact of this lah. But I'm trying my best also. I think people interpret it a bit differently, right? This art lah, right? But ultimately it does help to fill up the space a bit and give it a bit of a bit more interesting vibes lah, right? Yeah, ultimately it's a bit of a design is a lot about vibes also, right? So that's for lines. So now we're looking at shapes, right? So shapes, there's a few types of shapes. There's like geometric shapes, which is like squares, triangles, circles. There's organic shapes, which is like more or less lifelike kind of shapes, like shapes that shape after things in life. So I can go like a wave or like a star shape kind of thing. There's also abstract shapes, which are, as the name suggests, a bit more abstract. So it's then there's also like other shapes and symbols. So nowadays there's a lot of people like to use emojis, right? Shapes that are like emojis, right? So for example, like a heart shape emoji or like a hand wavy kind of emoji and so on. So there's a bit of overlap between shapes and like icons lah. But I'll go into that in a bit more detail. But basically it's like it's getting more and more interesting now. Now there's a lot of different types of shapes that are being used a lot across the internet. So like for example, most commonly you'll see is probably rectangles and squares, right? So generally squares, more or less it gives people a lot of structure lah. So squares generally is a lot about the balance and it gives a bit of reliability also, right? So like generally here you can see it's like there's a lot of structured feeling. It feels very balanced and stable in a sense, right? Of course, there's also this empty space here, which actually helps to balance out the page a bit. I'll go to talk more about the blank space later on. Yeah. And so commonly you see this kind of square stuff, for like navigation menu buttons and so on. Yeah, rectangles can be used for like actions for buttons and so on. Yeah. So more or less it's a very good way to organize information in the page. So here's another example. More or less there's two very big squares here, right? There's also over here you can see that this is a very wide rectangle also. It covers it spans the entire screen. So nowadays people are also like going for those kind of big screen, wide screen, impactful pages. Because nowadays people's screens can be like monitors can be like huge, right? They can like extend super long, right? So there are more people exploring like what does that mean for web design? No, does it mean that now should we try to make use of the full space, or should we like make it such that the content actually is very narrow, even though the screen is huge? So it's all the kind of directions that people are exploring, right? So here you can see it's quite interesting as well. Of course, I think the most common example that you guys probably all know is Instagram, right? So Instagram is all about the squares, and of course nowadays also rectangles. Right? But if you go to their like explore page, you'll see something like this. So more or less it's rectangles are basically squares and rectangles are very easy to tessellate, right? Very easy to stack them together and form a certain pattern. So in this case, Instagram uses this. Pinterest also has something similar, right? Pinterest also has a lot of squares and rectangles. So it helps to tessellate, right? And of course, equally in the quadrilateral space, right? There's also diamonds and rhombuses. So this is also quite interesting. So nowadays, this is more modern. and a bit more contemporary, but it's a bit more modernistic look lah. And generally a bit harder to use. As the thing is that the more interesting the shape, right, the harder it is to use it properly. So in this case, this website looks pretty fancy, right? And overall feels more vibrant, active lah, right? Rather than if this had all been squares instead, I think it'll feel a bit more boring, right? So in this case, they're trying to show you that this is an adventure. It's cool, right? It's like feels a bit more happening. So in this case, there's also this impact lah. Yeah. And of course, this is more interesting. So you can see actually, this is like a diamond that's formed by objects actually, right? So this, you can see implicitly there's a shape being formed here, which is quite interesting. So actually you can use shapes to, you can use objects to form shapes actually. So this is a bit more subtle. Yeah, so that's for diamonds and rhombuses. Then also there's triangles and zigzags. So you can see this is actually like a zigzag is happening. Actually, if you go to the website itself, actually this thing is like floating upwards. So actually it's like a DNA strand like that. It's like going back and forth, and then it slowly floats up. So yeah, so this you can see is like a zigzag effect. More or less, then you can see there's also triangles are also mostly used to signal some sort of motion and direction, right? So like generally it suggests some sort of like motion, yeah. And then here's another one that's quite interesting. So you go to the website, you can see you can drag this triangle around. And every time you drag it around, basically the background that's covered by a triangle becomes like a grayscale. So it's quite interesting, right? And generally triangles also have like a deeper meaning. Like for example, if a triangle is like pointing up, right, generally it communicates some sort of power, stability, and energy. But when it points down, it actually like conveys some sort of instability, and normally it's like tension and conflict. So these are more subtle stuff that people that go into art theory would like to tell you about. But unfortunately, I'm not going to share too much. Then lastly is maybe not lastly, but definitely is there's also circles and ovals. Right. So generally circles are quite commonly used, right? For like, for example, your avatar, like for example, your profile picture, right? It's also circles, right? Generally circles seem to suggest more of like a harmony and like infinity, right? Because they're very smooth, no sharp edges, and generally it makes things feel more youthful and carefree in a sense, right? So people use it for thumbnails, for icons, for logos, for buttons and so on. Generally, it's just more. It's quite interesting shape to use. Here's another interesting website. It's like this is basically like what's it called? Like those kind of discs lah. Suddenly can't remember the names. But basically you can go there and you can play around this page. I think you can like drag it to play certain music and so on. If I recall correctly, you can like spin this disc around. So it's quite interesting as well. This website is like just revolving around the concept of like circles, right? So this was circles. Then for curves and waves, there's also it's also very interesting. So in this website is like using a very wavy background, as is like a wavy shape for its background. So generally it feels more fluid, I guess. There's fluidity. It helps to make the user feel more relaxed and calm. Generally also I think nowadays people like to use curves a lot. So curves is a bit sexy nowadays. It's actually quite stylish and sexy nowadays. So there are also some other websites that actually use curves. So from both like there's this website called the Relativity of Time, right? So actually you go there, the curve is animated, it's constantly like moving up and down. So it's quite interesting, right? Commonly also people are using curves in this way, right? So like it's like a border. So it's like so people are getting bored. A lot of people are getting bored of like straight lines. So now the borders between it's also now formed using curves, right? So this is more or less what people are doing now, right? And then of course, besides so that's for shapes. So now we're talking about negative space. Okay. So I hope everyone gets the joke. It's like there's an empty space. So basically, in design, right, generally white space is actually very, very important, right? So it's basically a space between like and around elements of a certain page, right? So for example, like this chunk of text here, right? The space between paragraphs also help to make things more readable, and that gives meaning, right? That this is one segment, this one segment, and this one segment. And generally, it just makes things feel more lightweight and easy. Because if everything's very cramped, generally it's very, very uncomfortable for people to use. So example would be like over here, right? So this is example of something that's very, very cramped as compared to this that's well spaced out. So question is like some people are always asking like, oh, my website only has so much space. If I put so much empty space, won't it be like interfering with my ability to convey information? I think let's not try to remember UI is really about like making things easy to use, right? You don't really need to communicate so much information that you can squeeze so much text or squeeze so much content into like a certain page, right? Then you want to think about how can you design it better such that either you don't need to communicate that at all, so it's very intuitive, or like it's communicated in a more bite-sized chunks that people can absorb more easily. Because you just cram everything into a certain section, right? I think it's very hard for people to read also, right? Generally, people won't absorb information that easily as well. So empty space helps to help to paste things out also. Space things out also gives pacing to the user when they look through the screen. And often it's very easy to overlook it and neglect it for people, especially new to design, right? And really it's actually plays quite a huge role. So for example, this is a left example of like when everything is so evenly spaced out, right? As compared to some where negative space is used more effectively between a label like a different one component, one label and one placeholder, and one text field and second component, third component. So you can see in the first one, the first example here, right? When you don't use empty space properly, it's very confusing to a user. When you look at this, you can't really tell, which label is for what input immediately, right? It's not very straightforward. But where I say it's quite clear, my label, this label is for this not placeholder, sorry, this text field, this label is for this text field and so on. So white space is really like a supporting cast, right? And it doesn't stand out that much by itself, but it makes everything else shine. So this is the important thing, right? And I think one of the best websites can learn how to use white space or empty or negative space format is actually Apple, because I think Apple really does a great job with with how they use empty space. So you can see the website here, right? Like maybe 60% of this web page is like just black, right? 50%, 60% of the web page is just black. But it draws so much focus onto this iPhone here, and it draws so much focus onto the text here. They don't really have a lot of stuff about iPhone here. They just say, it's a leap year, and then they show you the price, and then they show this image, and you really have a very positive impression about iPhone already, right? It just feels very modern, and then this screenshot, this image of this iPhone actually serves a huge purpose. Right? You don't need like a huge chunks of text saying like, oh, the screen is so good, the phone looks very sleek. This single image does the job, right? And this negative space just have to support and make this image shine. So this is where negative space really plays a huge role. Yeah. So that's for negative space. So now we move on to volume. So volume is a bit harder to describe and more of an advanced concept. Generally, volume just means like there's some sort of three-dimensionality to things. So in this case, you can see that this bug here in the center of the page, it feels very like it's like popping out. Right? It pops out in your face, right? And of course, the rest of the page helps to support that as well. You can see that it feels like there's some sort of layering happening. There seems to be some depth using the colors that they have chosen here. So this really makes the whole thing just pops out in your face, right? But unfortunately, volume is a very hard concept to pick up, especially for new designers. So I don't expect people to spend too much time on this. I think for most of you guys, volume is like a more advanced concept that if you have a chance to apply, sure, but no need to force it. So here's another one, right? So this whole screen actually helps to suggest some sort of depth, right? There's an umbrella here that seems to have certain shadows, right? There's certain shadows going on here. And this table also is clearly like a very realistic, image with like depth to it. So this whole page just seems to, scream depth, right? And 3D-ish feeling. And after volume is value, right? So value is basically how light or dark something is, right? In the terms of like with white color being like the highest value and black color being the lowest value. So actually people say that value actually is potentially the most important variable to the success of a painting, even more so than the color, than your choice of color. So even if you choose the wrong color, right, but if your control of value is extremely well done, right, actually your painting can look pretty good. So for here's an example of a web page. So of course, clearly you see below here is the highest value, which is just white. Then of course here it's a bit darker. Then of course this whole chunk here, this whole middle part here is actually quite dark. But it doesn't seem that way, but actually it's pretty dark. So that the text in the middle, like this thing called This Man's Life. I don't know what this page is about, but I guess it's about this man's life. But basically this web page, right, this text, it stands out. You can actually read it, right? So because this only fact you can read is because the back is actually the backdrop is it has a lower value, yeah, right. So similarly, right, this here's another example. So the background is of a lower value, whereas the text is high value, so it stands out here, right. And of course, you can also do the opposite, right? Your background has a high value, but your text has a low value, right? It's dark. And here you can see that this is quite common. So people talk about the companies that they work with, they serve, right? This is it looks pretty nice, right? So clearly your attention may get drawn over here because it's quite dark. So although this is quite small, because it's quite dark relative to the background, it seems to have equal weight with the elements here which have lower, like a more medium value. So then you can stay at for a while and see actually it's kind of balanced. There's some sort of balance actually being achieved here, achieved by the value lah. Yeah. So this is about value. Okay. Any questions so far? Just feel free to unmute, ask, or if you have a question, you can drop in the chat. Yeah, and I'll respond on the spot. Yeah. The next question is about colors. So colors is very important. I think this is a very important thing. Let's say someone bought you your favorite car, right? Dream car, right? Of course you'll be like, wow, I'm so happy. But after you look at the car, you realize, oh shucks, it's in the color you hate the most. Right? It's it's some like lime green plus yellow, something like that. I don't know. It's some like horrendous color. I think you'll also be like, wow, like you'll be like, what the hell, right? So the thing is that colors play a huge role. Even the best designs, right? The colors a bit off, the impact is not there, right? They do have a certain tone and emotional impact, right? That people may not be consciously aware of, but it has an impact on people, and that makes it very powerful, right? So of course, for those of you who have done art before in like primary school, secondary school, and so on, right? You'll be like very tired of this, like primary colors. We talk about this every time there's some art class. But more or less, if you can break down to this, which is that cyan, magenta, and yellow. So you might have heard of like CMYK, CYMK, sorry, is it CMYK? Which is like cyan, magenta, yellow, and I think last one is black, if I'm not wrong. And then of course you might have heard of like RGB, like red, green, blue. So now I think there's like some you Google about this, there's like a few different theories about this. But effectively, I think nowadays it says cyan, magenta, and yellow seems to be more accurate as like primary colors as compared to red, green, and blue. But then nevertheless, people still use RGB. Even in like if you use CSS and stuff, you also might have used RGB before. Right. So just for primary colors. So more or less can mix and match to get the rest of the secondary colors and so on, like red and so on. Then there's also the hex values. So like I said, you can put like, if you do CSS, you'll be like you might have seen RGB 000. So that's the same as 000, 00, and 00. Right. And then otherwise you want white is 255, 255, which is the same as FFF. So for those that have done 2100, CS 2100, you might have like realized, oh, actually this is just hexadecimal numbers, right? It's correct. So this is actually in base 16. So 255 in base 16 actually just FF, right? Then same thing, 59 in base 16 is 3B, 89 in base 16 is 59, and then 145 in base 16 is 9B, and so on. So actually this is just a hexadecimal. So so the first value of course is the amount of red, the second value is amount of green, third value is amount of blue. So that's why it's RGB. Some guys may also have heard of RGBA. So A stands for alpha, which is the transparency. So alpha 1 means it's fully solid and opaque. Alpha 0 means it's transparent. So that's more or less the RGBA. Yeah. So next is warmth. So I don't want to go into too much of the color theory and so on, because I'm also by no means an expert in color theory. But more or less, warm colors generally evoke more passion, more intense emotions, right? So like for more aggressiveness and so on. So that's why you see red color is normally like for error messages. Some people stop, cancel button is red color, delete button is red color. Normally it's more aggressive, right? And bold. And generally people hesitate when they see such color, right? It's a bit like, okay, that looks dangerous. So generally that's what I use for error message and so on. Whereas cool colors generally is like more, coldness, right? Can be like, I mean, some people might say like loneliness, fear, and so on, but I don't think we want to go into such like abstract concepts for UI design. But more or less, it can be a bit more soothing. So for example, like a website, like there's blue color, right? Like a blue sky, kind of shade. Generally, it's more soothing to the user. So there's pros and cons to each for like different colors, right? And then of course, so that's warmth. Then of course there's tints and shades. And that'll be this way. A tint is basically like you have a color, you add white color to it, then you can get the next lighter tint, right? Then you take away the white color, you come the darker tint and so on. Of course, it's not that simple, but like more or less you can imagine it this way. So actually, This allows you to get like a monochrome palette quite easily. If you keep making lighter and lighter, lighter and lighter and lighter. So for those of you guys who like a monochrome stuff, this is it for you, right? You can just easily create a palette using this. Then of course there's this concept of saturation, hue, and lightness. Once again, I don't want to go into too much details, but some of you guys may have heard of HSL. So so RGB is a more common notation, but you can also actually represent colors in this notation called HSL, which is just hue, saturation, and lightness. So more or less, saturation. For those of you guys who like edit your photos before you post on Instagram, you more or less know what I'm talking about already, right? You more or less are like, oh, I mean, you played with these filters before lah. So saturation just means like how intense color is. Hue is what's the color you're talking about, and then lightness is like how dark or light the color is. So this is a diagram you can kind of see to refer to like what I'm saying lah. So hue is a color lah. Then lightness is the how light and dark, and then saturation is basically the how intense the color is, right? Then lastly is a color wheel. So lastly, color wheel is that maybe not much to talk about this, just that generally opposing colors in the color wheel are what we call complementary colors, aka like opposite colors lah. So like although it's complementary, actually means like contrasting colors. So I think most of you know about green and red. Red and green are contrasting colors. So you ever see like a patch of red and then like a green in the middle, it's very striking. Or vice versa, like patch of green and red in the middle. It's very, very striking because it stands out a lot. The contrast is huge. Same thing for like some guys may have heard of like blue and orange. So that's another very common pair being used for contrasting colors, and yellow and purple. So yellow and purple is a very interesting pair. Generally, I quite like this pair because it actually looks quite disgusting when you when you do yellow and purple. Actually, people look at it. Actually, it's quite it gives people a bit like sense of disgust actually sometimes, which is artistically speaking is quite interesting. Yeah, but more or less, generally they use 12 colors to represent the color wheel. So ultimately, what's the point of all these colors? Actually is to eventually arrive at a color scheme for your website, right? So there's a few types of color schemes. So first is monochrome, which I mentioned already. So basically make it lighter and lighter. Then there's also what we call complementary, which is exactly what I mentioned earlier, which is that you take colors that are across the color wheel. So you don't have to be directly across. It can be just like somewhere across the color wheel. So in this case, you can see there's this color is a bit more purplish / not really purplish, like brownish red with a little bit of like purplish feel to it, a bit more maroon, right? Then here is a bit more like aqua blue, a bit more darker blue, right? And it actually complements in the sense that it's not too contrasting, but at the same time, it's also a bit contrasting. So this is an interesting color palette you can use. It's very hard to use kind of color palettes. You have to actually have quite good design sense to come up with a design that works with this. Then analogous basically is more or less they're like adjacent colors on the color wheel, I can do it this way. So like this color, this color, and this color, they're more or less next to each other in the color wheel. You can just kind of like they're quite close to each other in proximity. So generally these colors tend to be quite quite similar because they are quite close to each other, right? And then generally it can be very can feel quite cohesive as a feel, right? So even if you are not doing monochrome, you can still feel very cohesive because they're quite adjacent, they're quite close to each other. Then triadic is basically like you draw like a triangle in the color wheel, right? Then you just select the 3 points of the triangle. So this generally gives a very diverse, but yet at the same time surprisingly balanced scheme. And generally you want to draw like a triangle is close to equilateral triangle. So that's an interesting thing to try if you have ever had a chance. Yeah. Okay, so that's enough about color. So lastly is color psychology. Generally, I think you guys are more or less bored about it. So like red is like what, love, energy. Black is more like a formal, feel more secure and stuff. Yeah, and this is actually, you can actually see these kind of things in the logos actually. So like Netflix, it's black and red. It's like very powerful, very vibrant, like boom. And actually they're opening the sound effect and so on. Actually, it's the same kind of thing, right? It's like the like sound at the start, right? Then they show the logo and everything and zoom in the logo and stuff. So it's actually all about like impact, just very powerful. Whereas like Google, right? Google's logo is like very colorful and a lot of different colors, which is quite interesting. Generally, companies don't go into so much colors, but their color seems to work together in the sense that like they probably have very similar intensity in terms of saturation and very similar tones like as a whole. So it's this kind of stuff people like it's like we are very diverse, right? It gives people about diversity, fun, So this is the kind of psychology you get from looking at colors. And lastly is the color distribution. So generally, a website more or less can be broken down to have 60% primary color, 30% secondary color, and 10% accent color. So primary color is basically like more or less like a background color, the most dominant color in the website. Secondary color generally is used for like stuff that won't stand out against the primary color, but not too much also. It's more like for example, like text color, the color of the text and so on. Lastly, accent color is one to stand out in the page. So for example, there might be a button that says like buy now. You know, you want people to go and press the button to buy stuff, right? You gotta make that accent color. You need to make it stand out. Or like a button like next or like login, sign up now, that kind of stuff. You need to make it accent color. So let's give it a try. So like let's take a look at this website. So this Apple's website. What do you think is the primary, secondary, and accent color here? Maybe you guys can comment in the chat. I think that's quite straightforward. Just for free comment. Yes, correct. So Hans is right. So yes, white is definitely a primary color. The whole page is just white. In fact, this is like maybe 80% white. Right. The one might be a secondary color in this case. Yes, okay. So Hao Yang is correct. So black is a secondary color here. You can see that this is more or less tech color is secondary. You can see black here also. And Nepa also is secondary color. It's a bit of, I mean, it's like gray, but more or less the same thing. Then blue is accent color. Yes, so you can see the buy. You know, it stands out. Right? Look at this. The first thing you look at is actually the buy. Actually, you close your eyes, look again. You actually see the first thing you look at is the buy button because it stands out. So this is accent. Learn more is also. Learn more say also all accent. This orange color here and this orange actually you can also say the somewhat like accent color. There's no restriction to say that you only must have one accent color, but ultimately you want to have some sort of standardization, so it's not too messy. If like you have like 50 types of accent colors, people also like don't really know what you're trying to do also. It's very confusing. Here it's very clear that the blue is accent color. So yeah, so thanks guys for the comments. Yeah. So for those of you guys wondering like, oh, but I don't know how to choose color at all, you know. How am I supposed to choose color template for or color palette for my website? Right? There's a few websites you can use. So one is Adobe Color. Last time they call it Cooler, but now it's color.adobe.com. You can go there and actually play around and decide on your own color scheme, color theme. They actually help you build. You can, like everything I said, like triadic, monochroma, analog, and so on, right? You can actually go there and select those things, and then they help you generate the colors. There's also coolers.com. So this is quite popular nowadays. Coolers. It's a very popular website that a lot of designers use. And now there's also like a color hunt, which is kind of like a Facebook / Instagram for color schemes. Right. So actually, yeah, it's quite interesting as well. So I think these are all tools you can check out. So that's for colors. This last last part for art elements. Yeah, I know some of you guys will be like bored of your mind, but I'm just trying to share more. Okay, so lastly is texture. So texture is a bit hard to use. I think texture generally is the more advanced technique as well. But this case, you can see that this website has this texture over here, right? This nice green slash looks a bit more, gives a very like a luxury, sophisticated feel, right? So this helps with their branding, which is that you know, I don't know what this says in French. Anyone good at French can perhaps help to translate. But more or less, it's trying to say it's probably some sort of beauty related product, I guess, or some sort of product that like it's more luxury brand. Like it's trying to sell itself as a luxury product. So this kind of texture actually helps to reinforce the image. But like I said, it's a bit more advanced, and most people won't use textures for their first few projects, I think. And this I think normally you have a UI designer help you do this stuff. Yeah. Okay, so that's for the art elements that we talked about. Now let's talk about the UI elements. Right. Once again, stop me anytime by just sending a chat and I'll try to respond. So UI elements also, yeah. So this may be your components also. But let's talk about the basic UI elements. So first is typography. So typography actually is an art of its own. Okay, so I think a lot of people underestimate what typography can be. So actually, typography is actually just an art also. There's so many ways to just design using text, right? So from what this whole slide is just text also, but it looks pretty okay, I hope. Right, but like let's take a look at what I can do with text law. Right, so let's take a look at this image. I don't know if it worked for you. Let me know if it works for you in the chat. But more or less, this is kind of thing that text can achieve, typography can achieve, right? If you do it well. So for me, I think even if I know the trick, right? Yeah, the order works for you. Okay, nice. Thanks, Hao Yang. Yeah, for me, even if I know the trick, I look at this, I'll still fall for it. Like in the sense that I'll still read this, then this. This is the kind of thing that you can control using just text. can literally control how the user goes through the page, right? You can manipulate the user flow, the user experience, just using text. This is the power of like properly designed text, right? So of course you can break it down even further. You can explain why. Can think about why is it that this is always red first? It's the fact that it's like different color. It stands out. It's black on white, whereas everything else is brown. And of course, after you read this, generally people instinctively go downwards. Instinctively people go like to read downwards, so you look at this and this. Then you notice there's something on top. So generally because it's quite small, so right. So you can control the flow, right? Then of course about typography, I think this is a page that summarizes everything that you need to know about typography. I'll share this slide, so don't worry, don't need to like memorize everything here. But more or less, some of these things you might know already, like font size, like font weight is how thick this is. The word spacing is like the spacing between words and so on. And baseline, when you hear baseline, it refers to this. And leading is the space between these two lines. And line height is the space between these two lines. It's quite similar, but it's not really the same. Right. So this is you might have heard of leading and line height. But I think what's interesting to talk about maybe is kerning. So kerning actually is what I call a specific pairs of leaves or characters, rather, or symbols. Right. So I'll send this to the chat. You look at this word AV. Look at AV here. You look carefully at AV that I sent to a chat, right? You realize actually A and V, they're actually overlapping. You think about it. Look at this. V actually is going into A, right? Actually. Whereas if I type AB, you can see that B is clearly not going to A. Right. So this is what's kerning about. Kerning is that it's actually how close specific pairs of characters are to each other. So if A and V was separated out very they're far apart, right? Actually looks very weird. You actually look like they look very awkward. So it doesn't look natural, which is quite surprising because actually you don't really notice kind of things, right? Like sometimes you don't really notice A and B are so close to each other. Right? But if you look carefully, actually they're actually going to each other. Right? So this is kerning. Whereas letter spacing is more general. Letter spacing is like more or less spacing between all glyphs, right? So this is a difference, but some call it tracking. Yeah. So I hope you guys found this interesting. For me, I was mind blown when I found out about the AV and other stuff. Yeah. So generally, font size wise, you don't want to use too many font size in a single page. You want to stick to a few, generally 5 font sizes at max. But like I said, there's no hard and fast design. Ultimately, if you need 10 font sizes to achieve a certain effect, go ahead. No one's stopping you. But if you're building like a general standard website, for the most of the content, you shouldn't use 20 font sizes, at most 5. Maybe like some special parts of the app can have like very different font sizes, but generally you don't want to go and make it too fancy. And there's also a few types of fonts. So like there's serif fonts, which is like very round and curvy. So like this is what I call serif. Then there's also sans serif fonts, which are basically like those kind of fonts with a little bit more traditional. They have this like pointy edges, right? So it's like I'm pointy, right? So this is a sans serif. And then of course you guys know about monospace. So when you write code in your Vim, in your VS Code, in your IntelliJ, the font that you see is monospace. Monospace means that every character has the same amount of space used. So you see that actually, like for what I uses less space than T, right? Because I is quite skinny, right? There's no reason to give I as much space as this capital T here. But in the monospace font, it takes out the same amount of space. So this is why it's monospace. Right? Yeah. So more or less, I hope everyone gets understand this bit. And then here's just an example that I'm giving for typography website. So you see this whole page here actually is purely just text, right? It's just typography, right? It's just fonts. So here's the main font. Here's another font size here. Here's another font size. Even the logo actually is just a font. Actually, it's just text, right? Actually, logo is like what? DS Disin Theta. I guess this is like his company or something, right? Yeah. So actually, or Design Theta. Okay, I don't know, but effectively, yeah, this is just it's quite to me. I quite like this page. Right? I mean, it looks quite beautiful, looks pretty clean, and like I said, there's no empty space, right? Empty space gives it makes it such that you can focus on what's necessary, which is this part. He's Bahu Chakra Body, right? This is him. And then he's focused on crafting new experiences for the new internet users. So this is impactful, right? And actually you drift towards this and you want to click it. Okay, so this for typography. Then there's also icons. So icons actually is also used to represent certain actions and ideas in a very intuitive manner. So like from the rating, right? You see a thumbs up button, you straight away know, okay, that means thumbs up, man. You know, it's like it means good, right? Approval. And if it's like a trash bin button, it may be a delete button, for example. Or like if it's like a logout button, you see like normally you see this kind of like the box and then the arrow coming out, right? look at you know, you should really tell like, oh, let's log out. No, you don't really need to put a word there, log out. You don't need to put like a like. Okay, I guess for no offense to Facebook, but if like you have a thumbs up button there, you don't really need a like word there, right? People understand it. So like Jenny want to use universally recognizable icons, so and be consistent with the icon usage. So like don't like use a thumbs up for like approve here, then the thumbs up for like for something else there. You know, then people like, why the same symbol but they mean different things. It's very confusing to users. And then of course, if your certain icons are a bit ambiguous, please add some text to make it not ambiguous. I mean, generally not a problem, but sometimes happens. So even if you ever need icons, you can go to like websites like Font Awesome. So Font Awesome, I think Font Awesome 6 is out now already. So you can actually go and use the icons. Different icons like Abacus and like like what's this? The Acorn and like a 500px also got icon. I mean, this is they have a huge repository of icons. Of course, some of them you need to pay money to get. But for most of them, actually, you don't need to. So most of the icons that you need, more or less, you can get for free. So you can try using Font Awesome. There's also a library for like those people using I think if you use MUI, you can have MUI icons. I think there's something called feather icons. So there are a lot of icon libraries out there. Please go and explore before you pay money. There's no need to pay. There's really no need to pay for any icons. There's a lot of libraries out there. So here's a website about that showcases the use of icons. So I think this is in probably Russian, I think. And I don't need no Russian to know what these symbols actually mean. Right? More or less, it tells me that this is probably location. Right? Locate us, find us. But probably, I mean, I see a map icon here. Here's a shopping cart item. Probably is checkout on my cart, right? I mean, I don't need no Russian to know this. Then this is I don't know. This hands up. Maybe this is like okay, maybe this is like some customer service thing, I don't know. Or like I guess this is a bit ambiguous. So this is where you need text. If you look at this kind of logo, you don't really know what it means. You need to put some text below it to make it clear. It might be like track your order, you know, because I see like an eyeball here also. And here's like a probably collaboration or partnership stuff, right? Or like yeah, I don't know. And here is probably call us, and then this is probably opening hours, because the clock. So more or less, I don't really know Russian to kind of tell. Of course, there's hours here, but I don't need Russian to tell like what this website is trying to do, and everything. You know, the icons more or less tell the story already. And they're called Buddha Pizza. It's quite cool. Okay, so that's for icons. Then naturally, with icons, it brings us to buttons, right? Oh wait, we're talking about icons also. Nowadays, we like to use emoji, like I said. Emoji is a very popular thing now. Nowadays, you see like they use like a fire emoji, like instead of like thumbs up, now it's like fire emoji. Press it, like the fire lights out and stuff like that. I think it's a big thing now. Telegram also got emoji reactions. WhatsApp also got emoji reactions now. I mean, this emojis is like the big thing now, lah. So if you guys can explore using emojis, go ahead. Then there's also buttons. So buttons more or less generally there's a few types. So one is what I call primary button. Then the next is a secondary button. This call to action button depends. Sometimes the call to action button is also styled as a primary button. But basically, call to action basically is what's the one thing you want your user to do on this page? Normally you have to answer this question. You show this page. What is the one thing you want users to do? Then that's your call to action. Means you want the user to go and do the action. You want to call them to do the action. Right. So like from checkout, buy now, you know, sign up now. That's your call to action. So generally that's you want to figure out what's the one thing you want users to do. Right. Then you make it very very obvious that you should be doing that. So generally there's a few states for buttons. I think for those of you guys who are very familiar with front end, this is like, oh, I know already, you know. But for those that are like still learning, let's share a bit. Like, it corresponds to CSS also. So generally you have a normal, which is like the normal button. Sometimes there's a hover state. So sometimes you hover, the button becomes lighter or darker, depending on like the styling. But don't know you hover your arrow, your button becomes like your cursor becomes like a clicker. Right? And then it shows like excuse me, it shows a different color or state. There's also focus. So focus basically means that like for example, you go to a website, you can press tab to go through all the interactive elements, and you can potentially focus on the button. So then you press enter, you iterate that button. More or less focus just means you're focused on this button. Active means that you are actively interacting with it. Right? So sometimes you click on it, there's like for MUI, you see the animation like the bubble, woo, like the color, like not lighter, right? But then there's like a circle that expands out, that kind, you know. I don't know if you guys have tried before in MUI. But there are also other similar libraries that do that. Then of course there's a disable state. So like the button is, you should make it very obvious that it shouldn't be clickable. You can also have when you hover, you can also have the cursor change into the icon that shows like it's like not allowed. I think it's called not allowed. Yeah. And then lastly is not lastly, sorry. One more element part of design is also content design. So this part I think for huge companies like from both Facebook, Google, like this kind of companies, right, their teams will have a content designer. Means every single word you write on the website, right, actually has to be approved and designed by the content designers. They have to go and to actually write out everything that shows on the screen. So there's no case where you get to decide what to write as a developer for like a website that's actually being used. So there's a specific, it's very, very strict lah. But of course in Orbital, you guys are the everything lah. You guys are developer, designer, business person, product person, everything. You're also doing everything, right? So you have to design the content lah. So generally you have to find a way that you have to write it in a way that makes it easy to consume. So I read it, I don't have like, what's this website trying to say? I like, what's this place saying? I have no idea what's being communicated here. Then you know you feel already. But it should be like the way they look at it, and then it's like a language and format they understand, right? They can easily accept, right? So this is part of it's partially writing skills, partially UX, and partially accessibility also, right? So for example, if let's say you have a whole chunk of text, right? It can be replaced by just a video. Then maybe you shouldn't be doing a text, right? So this is about thinking about content, right? So that's more or less the content design. So so like I said, content can be also media. So like, how do you use media for our websites? You can see the media. A lot of times image, right? Okay, maybe not worth 1,000 words lah, but image can be like at least 100 words maybe. But it can be very, very much more powerful than text. So can a video be, right? So like you generally want to use different types of media in your website to engage people in different ways. You want to like pull them in different ways, and then you can compel them to do actions. So let's give an example. Let's say you go to like a charity website, like a website that is for a NGO. What images do you expect to see? Normally, you expect to see images of them like helping the seniors, right? Helping their beneficiaries, right? Helping the poor, helping the people in like a disaster stricken places, helping them to build shelters. You see like people's life being changed. You see these kind of images, of course you'll be like, oh, okay, I now I more or less have greater trust in this organization that they're actually using my money for greater good. Then I'll be more willing to donate my money. So there's a certain story they can tell from images also. You write in text, we help this. People are like, okay, sure. I mean, maybe not, you're just saying that you're helping. But you show image, wow, people, okay, I'm convinced. I'm sold. I'm donating. So actually there's a story you can tell with text, images also. The text really cannot. So let's talk about like subtle ways that it helps us. So for example, like this screen here, this is Lyft, by the way. Lyft is like a ride sharing app, just like Grab in the US that they use a lot. So like you look at this image above, more or less can show you tell this page is about health and safety and mask and COVID. I don't really need to read through this whole thing. More or less I get this is a summary of the whole page. And it helps because sometimes people they see so much text, they're like, wow, what's this all about? But I see this image, okay, something about health requirements. Probably I'll just okay I'm more primed to accept the information. I'm in the mentality to accept the information. Same thing for this one. I just tell you like, oh, you're getting notifications. You'll be like, what kind of notifications you going to send me? But you look at this image, it tells me quite clearly. Okay, it seems to be telling me that you'll tell me like where my driver is and so on. Intuitively, it gives me more assurance that that you are not sending me rubbish lah. You're going to give me like stuff that's interesting and so on and useful. So this image also like gives a bit of confidence in your app. It's a bit subtle, hard to just like I say, hard to say, describe it very concretely, but more or less it's this kind of effect. Then you see this is Google, one of the Google's arts and culture website, I think. Can go and take a look. Basically this is a static image, right? But actually this is actually a video. The background is actually a video. I don't know if I can show you guys. Let me see. Never mind. I don't want to edit. I don't have time also. But you can go and check out the website. But then all the URLs are below, and I'll send a slides also at the end. Basically, it's never mind. Yeah. So this whole thing is like a video of like all the different beautiful sceneries of national parks, and it's quite impactful. You go there, you see like you see like you see the ocean, you see the snowy regions, you see the I believe this is probably some rainforest lah. I think it's very impactful. This is like it tells the whole story just in itself. So now it's very common to see videos as backgrounds for websites already. Okay, so now we're done with UI elements. That's about the principles. I'll try to zoom through this because I think I'll be behind time. I'm trying to end on time also. Yeah, so let's see what I can talk about. So principles more or less are universal stuff they can apply anywhere actually, not even just in design, I think your daily life can also apply principles. Okay, it's like really, really common sense. Not so principles. A lot of them are like actually how the brain works for people, but put into words and into ways that you can use it to maximize the impact, lah. Right? How to say? More or less, it's human behavior, lah. So the first principle is unity, lah. So firstly is that you want your website to look united. You want the app to look united, right? You don't want them to like one part looks like it's clearly built by one person, and the other part is clearly built by another person. Like the color is different, the way the things are aligned are different. It's not consistent, right? It looks very bad on the app, right? So generally, you want to have a certain the state of being a whole. The whole thing should be a whole, right? So actually, one of the golden rules of good web design is that the whole thing should be a complete and pleasing product, right? So it's quite important, especially when you go into big companies in the future, or like teams in the future, like companies, not even big companies, like companies in the future, right? Your product's unity, right, actually helps to build brand identity also, right? For example, when you look at Google, when you think of Google's products, right, you think of like Google Drive and everything, Google like email, Gmail, and everything. It's actually more or less there's a certain style to it that's quite united across the suite of products that actually serves to be their brand image also. So this whole thing helps to in a lot of different ways, lah. So I won't go too much details about this, but let's take a look at some examples. So example of this is this is a very interesting. I mean, this is just a design, lah. It's not actual app. It's the design of an app. But more or less, you can see that there's a lot of unity in terms of the colors being used. So there's always this kind of blue, the font being used, the way things are organized and arranged, and basically aligned. How things repeat. There's a it's very consistent throughout, lah. Like the spacing between the apps, right? There's always this like either 1 unit of spacing or 2 units of spacing, like over here. But more or less, it's very consistent, right? Through the app, it gives you, it just makes you feel like this is designed by more or less as one person or like a team of people that have the same mind. They have the same idea in mind, which is very, very beautiful. And this now website that's actually like selling some sort of KFC console or something like that. You can see it's quite interesting how the alignment also helps to create some sort of unity. Sure, the image is a bit jarring, like the background color changes back and forth. So I would say that that's not very united. But overall, it's still okay because it's quite monochrome. The color more or less monochrome. But the alignment is what's really helping with the unity here. Right? And there's a lot of repetition also. Like you can see it's left, right, left, right, left. Becomes like it's like just it's repetitive and just it helps to build a unity. Right. So a common adage in the product design world is don't make users think, right? So you don't want people to think too much, right? So it can be quite challenging to achieve, but actually it can be done quite easily. Well, like and I'll tell you how it's done. So there's this theory called Gestalt. So Gestalt basically says that it says that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So in other words, basically our mind always try to make order of chaos. Right? Even if there's chaos, our mind will try to give it order. And Gestalt basically describes how is it that our mind does that. Right. So Gestalt is a German word, it's like means shape or form. I think some psychologists actually came out with it last time. And then basically they describe how the mind behaves and perceives the world. So it's quite interesting. So there's a lot of different rules and principles. So I'll speak through this quite briefly. But more or less look at I'll show an example for each of them, and more or less you understand it by looking at it. So first one is called emergence. So basically, our mind tend to look at see simple and strong objects rather than detailed objects. So we see elements in general form first. So sure, there's a lot of circles, but I'm pretty sure you guys didn't see the circles first. You guys probably saw UX, right? So this is emergence, right? The next is what I call reification. So I think some of you guys in 2030 might have learned like type reification, right? Which is a similar concept. Basically, even if there's missing parts, right, our mind can actually deduce the whole thing. So we can straight away tell that this is invisible or visible, even though it's missing the eyes, the body of the eyes, right? Actually, we can straight away deduce that it means it's saying that. So this is the reification, how our brain works, right? Then next is the multi-stability. It means that even though if there's more than one way to perceive the object, right, our mind will ultimately decide on one, and then that becomes a dominant way after a while. So you look at this cube, right? Some of you guys might see this square here as the front, as the side that's more in front. Some of you guys might see this side, this square as the side that's further in front. So, but after all, you'll realize that your mind will settle on one of them, right? Regardless of which one you choose. After all, your mind will settle, and then you can't really get out of it unless you look away and look back again. right? So that is multi-stability. The next is invariance. Well, actually, it's lost. Sounds like CS. But basically, invariance is that our mind actually creates like a simplified projection of a particular object that's in our mind. Actually, thanks to that, regardless of how the thing is rotated, changed, or transformed, right, we can actually identify it as to be the same object. So in this case, we know that although all these 5 elements here all look a bit different in terms of how they are, actually they can be very different objects, right? But we can tell that actually they are the same thing, right? They are this thing being rotated and transformed and being spun around and so on. Right, it's quite interesting. Actually, like there's nothing to suggest that these 5 things are actually the same thing completely. It may be just that this is just shaped this way, right? It's nothing to do with transformation and rotation or whatever. But our mind can tell us that it seems to be it suggests that it's the same thing. Then next is a proximity. So basically, how close things are actually basically affects how we group elements in our mind. So basically, things that are more closely placed together are perceived to be groups. And proximity actually is so powerful that actually is stronger than stuff like shapes and colors. So you can see that actually we see this as one group and see this as another group. Even the colors are changed, we still see this as one group and this as another group. Even the shapes are changed, we still see it as a group and see this as a group. We do perceive them as slightly different. We perceive them as slightly different groups. Actually, yeah. So this is about proximity. And how does it help you? Remember I told you about how blank empty space works? Right. So actually empty space is actually because of proximity. Right. Actually, empty space actually helps with proximity. So for example, like if you have stuff so packed together, it doesn't really help too much in recognizing the individual elements. But when you give a bit of empty space, negative space here and there, and space things out a bit, clearly you can tell that this is one item. This is one item because they are so close to each other, whereas they are further away from everything else. So this is, it helps to group content with like controls and actions, right? And more or less, it makes it a bit more intuitive to look at. So that's proximity. Then of course, there's what I call similarity. So things that are similar tend to be grouped together as well, right? As compared to things that are not bearing the same attributes. So the main characteristics that help to boost this kind of similarities like size, shape, and color. But it's not, it's a bit weaker than proximity, but it's also quite powerful. So for example, like say you can see that this, you perceive this as one group and this as one group because they have different colors. You perceive this as one group, whereas this whole thing is like another group because they're different shapes. And here in this case, I think you perceive this as one group, this is one group, this is one group, because they have different colors also. Right. So more or less, this is the principle of similarity. And same thing, this actually helps. How does this help you in your design? You don't want to make your buttons too similar. Let's say one is a destructive button and one is a button that you want to press. If they're both like primary buttons, the user can say, it should suggest that these 2 buttons seem to do the same thing. More or less they should be both like either good or bad. What you want is actually something like this, right? So this seems to suggest this is like constructive, it doesn't do anything, doesn't delete anything like destructively, but this is a more destructive, right? So this seems to suggest that these 2 buttons are very different in type, and these 2 actions, and therefore you should consider which action you want to do very carefully. Here I might accidentally press remove because I'll think that it doesn't seem to stress the importance of the difference between these 2 . Yeah. So this is one we can apply . Then another thing is continuation. So continuation basically means that when our eyes are guided from one thing to another, we actually see things arranged in certain patterns. Right. So actually, even though this is just randomly, this actually what if I tell you I just randomly drew some circles here. There's no pattern at all. But you look at it, you see like there's a curve here, right? A certain pattern flow to it. Even if I can tell you that actually I didn't do anything like that. Right. And same thing for the arrows and this thing. Even if there's a broken chunk here, well, you can connect the dots. Right. So this is about continuity. So how does this, once again, how to apply? So one good thing is maybe like sliders, right? For example, you see group of elements, right? Like sliders or tabs, right? You may actually now notice that they're using continuation, right? They're next to each other, firstly. And then you guys have to guide your eyes to flow from one thing to another, to the next. The eyes actually flow along the tabs, right? And the buttons. And similarly, when you press things, normally there's this bar that shifts back and forth, kind of like Telegram, the image, the DP bar, it moves back and forth, currently. Then there's also thing called closure. So basically, generally objects are perceived as the whole thing, even when they are not complete. So actually, our mind fills in the gaps quite fast. So from what we can see, there's pentagon here, but even if it's not really there's no lines here that shows that this is a side of the pentagon. But the fact that these things have these corners here, right, our mind actually can tell there's a pentagon here for some reason. The closure is achieved actually. Same thing here, right? Even though there's nothing really connecting these things, we can kind of tell that they're part of the circle. But even if there's nothing suggests that actually it's a part of the circle. So where can this is used? It can be used in loading indicators, progress bars, and so on. So actually, in all these kind of cases, law of closure is actually applied to make it more understandable. Right? You look at this one, or what kind of loading animation is this? Like, I don't really feel anything, right? This is very confusing. But over here makes sense. I'm loading this remaining part. I'm waiting. There's some incompleteness to it, and I'm waiting for that part. So we can perceive that there's something is full, and this is not full. So there's something missing. So it's loading. So it's quite interesting how our mind kind of works for these kind of things. And then there's also a concept of symmetry. So generally, our mind perceives symmetrical objects as part of the same group. So for example, you can see, even though this is just like random vectors, right, we still perceive these two as one group, these two as one group, these two as one group, because they're symmetrical. Same thing here. This seems to be, our mind classifies them as together. Like we perceive this as one unit because they're symmetrical. So it helps to create stability and order. But even if there's actually not supposed to be any. So for those of you guys building mobile apps with Flutter and so on, right, like Swift or like, I don't know, or like what's called for Android apps for example, your nav bar, right, on the bottom of the screen, you can put like a home button, like home here, and then like 3 items here, and then this like some like maybe camera button or something, like Instagram has a camera button last time. Now not really there anymore either, but now last time there was this camera button, right? You know that this intuitively this looks wrong, and that's because there's no balance, right? And this feels very weird. This seems to be one unit, and this seems to be one unit. But whereas if you balance them out and it's symmetrical, actually this feels like a whole unit in its own. So this is where you can use it for like galleries and banners and so on, and like menu bars and so on. But my question is, do we always want symmetry? Actually, sometimes if you use asymmetry in design, the design can actually be very exciting and dynamic. But you look at it, wow, my eyes are constantly flowing back and forth because there's no stability in this page. I keep perceiving things like, and I don't see the symmetry that I expected, which is can be very jarring, which also may not necessarily be a bad thing when it comes to design. It may be a certain user experience you want. And then there's a common fate. So basically, generally when elements move in the same direction, you perceive them as the same group, right? Because they share the same common fate. Right? They have the same sorry, the text here is wrong, it's not proximity, it's common fate. They have the same outcome. So for example, so here's an example. Especially in motion design. So for example, if it's more meaningful if our animations are all the same for each card. So imagine you have 3 cards, and then the cards actually behave differently. When you swipe one card, one of them flies up, then the other one flies away, or like strings or something. Then like what the heck? Like this doesn't seem very weird. This seems so weird, right? But if you have if the fate is the same, like when you swipe the card, you'll just like they all behave the same way. Like they go to the left or they go up, and they all standardize to behave in the same way. Then you perceive them as similarly, in a sense. Yeah, you perceive them as connected content. Then this one is figure ground, means generally our eyes, we are able to separate objects on different planes of focus. So we know intuitively we know which object is in the background and which is in the foreground, and you don't need to put too much effort to figure this out. So here you can see that this is clearly the light thing is at the background, then this is background, then this is also background. So where does this normally use is models, right? When you press like something and this model pop up, generally you want the background to be faded a bit, and darkened a bit, so you can very clearly tell, what is on the foreground, what's on the background. If you don't give enough hints to the people in mind, right? Like to the users, don't give enough hints to them, right? And how their mind perceives it, right? They can't really tell. Like, there's nothing suggests to me that this is a model. This is so confusing, right? Sure, I can guess that this is a model, but like, I mean, it looks quite weird, right? But here it's very clear. I know this is a model, right? There's shadow even, right? So this is about the figure ground. I know some guys may be like wondering, oh, this is common sense. But I think it's a lot of these kind of common sense things, right? Actually, when you put into words, suddenly you realize, oh, actually, I didn't really think of it this way, right? And then, of course, this is common region. So basically, things put in the same region, they tend to be perceived as the same group. Quite similar to proximity, but a bit different also. So in this case, they're equally proximal, but then because of the fact that there's like a border here, you can perceive this as a separate group from this and this. right? So example would be if you want like a special offer, but instead of having them as like a put as a special offer, like a subtext here or like overlay here, you put just why not just put them together on the top and then put a special offer on top. This is very clear. These three items are not the same as the rest. This is very, very obvious, right? Intuitively, it's a lot more obvious than a special offer thing here, right? Then there's also this called periodicity. So things that they appear multiple times in similar distances, they are also perceived as related. So for example, right, if you want to have certain categories to objects, right, to like these products, right? If you want to feature some of them, right, you should split them up and have them have a different like how to say, break the periodicity, right? Break up the pattern. So there's a certain pattern like tune. Then you break it up, then tune here, right? So that there's also you break the pattern up. So it's more easy. It's all more easy to segment these two, right? So that's for the desktop principles. I hope everyone learned a bit from there. The next is view. I'm almost coming to end. I know. Then we go on to the hands-on part. So here it's about visual hierarchy. So generally users, when they see a user interface, they straight away react very fast one. I think nowadays you guys more or less look at the website, you can straight away tell you straight start respond very quickly. I think you guys are all quite tech savvy. So generally the eyes all follow some kind of a predictable reading paths, which are generally culturally influenced. So for example, for Western users, this may be like an F shape or D shape. So this is because we like to read text from left to right and down and up to down, right? So these patterns can actually be, you can either reinforce them, so make use of these patterns, or just break the patterns to make it like a very unique experience for users. But the goal is actually to make the most important information impossible to miss. Okay, so this is the important part. You can't make it such that the most critical information in the page is like invisible unless they go and stare carefully. You cannot expect them to do that. So take a look at this website, for example. Fullstory.com. So you look at this, first thing you see is this big thing here, craft a more perfect user experience. Then you read. Right, you read down here, then you get demo, then maybe you read this on top, and then maybe you take a look at this screenshot, depending on which one catches your eye at the time. Right. But more or less, this is unmissable. This is unmissable, and the flow, the hierarchy is very clear. Right? This is the big thing. Then everything else below is of a different hierarchy, lower hierarchy here. And this is also a big thing. Right. But this is the highest hierarchy here. It's at the foremost, right? Everything else is structured accordingly. Then here's another one, right? So you look at this, boom, this screenshot is already in your face. Then you naturally flow to here, right? So there's a certain flow that people follow, right? So this is hierarchy flow, right? It's a bit interchangeable, like the flow and hierarchy. A bit hard to explain it very concretely, but more or less it's like how the structured website that drives a certain user experience. So in this case, you flow down here, then you flow down to the bottom. So let me see how many more slides do I have. I think this is almost the last part. So the second last element we're talking about is balance. So balance is ultimately the distribution of like weight across the page. So more or less, I think this one everyone understands a bit. So here's an example of an interesting website that I quite like a lot. So this guy is he's saying that he's a designer and he's also a coder. So this website has an interesting balance that is clearly split in the middle, right? It's balanced on the left and the right. So left side there's these strokes in the background. Right side there's some code in the background. There's a code designer on top here, and the coder here balances out symmetrically. And this balances out, and this image of him also balances out. Right, so it's overall very balanced in the middle. So this is what I call symmetry. Right, this is what I call symmetry. There's also asymmetrical balance. So this balance is not symmetrical. Right? It's like a bit weird. Right? Clearly, there's no building on the other side or like here. Right? So you can see, but I can intuitively tell that the balance is happening in the. Let me just annotate. It's clear balance is happening over here in the middle here. In this diagonal. So it's quite interesting how this here, including the empty space here, so the negative space helps also, right? All these things here help to balance out all these very impactful pictures here. It's very interesting, right? So this text, this, and then like you flow to here, right? Generally you follow this flow, but it's balanced. This page feels balanced, right? There's also another type of balance called radial balance. Radial, as in like a circular. So you look at this page, what's the first thing that pops out in your mind, pops out to you? Actually is this middle part, right? Recommended. Everything else is built around it. And although it's not really like it feels very balanced as a whole, right? It's like you stare at this recommended part and then like everything else just kind of like balances around it. So it kind of seems to be a balance that's focused on the center and goes outwards. but it's like it's like balanced in like a circular manner. I'm not sure how to explain it also, but like more or less you can feel there's some balance with your website also. And that's one of this is what I call crystallographic balance. This means that or what we call mosaic balance. It's maybe the hardest to want to do, because basically what it means that at first glance it looks messy, looks like noisy, but after looking at it carefully, you realize there's actually certain hierarchy to it and certain structure to it. There is actually a certain balance to it as well. But even though it's messy, it's actually balanced, surprisingly. So this is a Pinterest, which I think most of you guys are familiar with, might have like used before. It's an example of a mosaic balance. So even though it feels chaotic, right? Because like, wow, this is so long, this is so short. But at the same time, you realize this website actually doesn't feel out of balance, right? It feels quite okay. And this is because they have actually quite structured columns over here, right? So these 5 columns actually help to organize this whole website over here. It looks visually pleasing, right? Despite the fact that it looks actually looks really chaotic at the first glance. Okay, lastly, the last concept I want to talk about is dominance. So the fact is that unfortunately, some things you cannot emphasize everything on the website. You have to have something spread out and some things stand out in the front. So emphasis is actually relative, right? So the most dominant element will have a greater visual weight than elements that dominate. If you have too many elements that try to dominate, right, actually then nothing dominates, right? Everything's trying to be like syndrome says in Incredibles, right? Everyone's a super, nobody's a super, right? So you must make it such that there are certain people, certain action, like things in the page that stands out more than the rest, right? And generally that's what you want. That's what I call a call to action. So take a look at Netflix, right? Like Netflix, the background is faded. You can't really look at see what's on the background. I just stare carefully like what's this or this is a picture. Look at this, all Vincenzo, right? But otherwise, this is very, very clear. The text here. This text here is also very clear. And this text field here, and this get started here, wow. It just stands out. It's very, 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 very in your face. They want you to press this button. This is what they want, right? So this is quite clear. Same page as just now also. HubSpot. HubSpot is quite a big thing also. This button stands out more than the rest. Clearly, if you look at this and you let eyes drift after a while, your eyes will actually automatically drift towards here. You give it a try, you relax your eyes and let it drift. After all, you start to drift towards this side. Because this is the most dominant thing in the page. Right. So this is the this is what dominance means. Okay. So that is for I think that's all I have to share for the elements. Then I think maybe one thing that some people ask me about, requested from me is talk about cross-platform design. So let's quickly talk about this quickly. Some guys might have heard of static design or adaptive design or responsive design. You might be wondering like what's the difference between all this, right? So static design just means that your product does not resize based on screen size. So basically, whatever you see on your mobile on the desktop is what you see on the mobile page also. There's no it doesn't change. It doesn't resize. Adaptive design means that based on the device screen size, you serve a specific design. So it doesn't actually necessarily have to adapt, have to respond to the exact width. It's more like if your screen is larger than this width, I serve you this design. If it's narrower, I serve this design. Whereas responsive is a fluid design that follows the screen size. So if your screen is like this width, you actually fill up the whole width, for example. And then if it's this width, you actually change and so on. So adaptive just means that like maybe you have to make it a bit more clearer. Adaptive just means that I just do 2 possible designs, right? This for desktop, this for mobile. Then I say that, okay, if your dimension is here to here, I just serve this design. But this design doesn't have to be responsive. It may not necessarily respond to your screen size. And like screen size changes. And then if your screen size is bigger than this one, I'll serve the desktop design. Once again, this one may be just like even if it's this wide, this item looks like this. If it's this wide, item still looks like this. So that's adaptive. But responsive means that if my screen is this wide, maybe my item looks like this. My screen is this wide, maybe my item looks like this. So it responds to the page, adapts to the page size. So it's a bit different. So that's what's the difference between all this. Now let's build adaptive plus responsive. So I think most of you guys will be doing this kind of stuff for your Orbital as well. Then there's a few different ideologies. One is this is desktop first. So you build design for desktop, then you build for mobile, adapt for mobile, or mobile first. So you design for mobile, then adapt it for desktop. Both approaches work, but they may result in slightly different outcomes. So I think this one need to be aware of this. Okay. Then let us do like a quick UI design critique before we jump into hands-on. Before take a break and then do hands-on. So first is let's basically, now that we have learned our stuff, let us try to apply what we have learned in look at some examples and apply what I learned. And I hope everyone can participate in this part. So okay, so let's look at this website. Waking people up with the truth. Can you guys comment? What are your thoughts about this website? Using whatever you learned earlier. There's a lot of things to comment about. So I don't think we can cover everything, but feel free to just fire off. Okay, I see very good question. Good comments. Massive fonts, too many colors, messy colors. Excellent. So there's like I don't know how many colors there are, man. This orange color here, the white color, then there's this gradient background, and there's this rainbow color here. And there's this like, I don't know what color this is. Then this text color is also not the same, and this color is also not the same. Very, very jarring. Then too many colors, yes. Sorry, messy fonts. Yes, you see it's like this font and this font are not the same, actually. I think it's a bit different. Then there's this I don't know, then this page, this font is also not the same as this font. This font is also not the same. Then there's this destroying man-made religions and tradition, exposing church lies. I mean, it's just like, wow, there's 5 fonts here. Very, very jarring. Okay, how Yang said a good point. Search bar not aligned to anything. Yes. There's no it's not balanced, right? Doesn't feel very like they're just out, right? There needs to be some sort of sometimes alignment helps to make things more organized. Red font hard to read. Yes, correct. Very hard to read the red font. Everything screaming to get our attention. No dominance. Yes. Excellent. There's someone say not balanced. Yes, correct. So there's this thing sticking out here. It's not balanced. Picture size not balanced. Yes, also correct. There's this big picture of World War III here. And this how the Illuminati create and so on. Okay, so this is an example of a very poor website, very poor design. It's some I guess I don't know how I found this screenshot actually. It's some conspiracy website. But I mean, it's a good example of to see how when you don't do design properly, how websites can end up looking like. Let's take a look at a better example. So let's take a look at this website by Stripe. Okay. So what are your thoughts about this website? Okay, so yes, symmetry, yes. Interesting, this is a very interesting point by Hans. Surprisingly, even though there's like a lot of empty space here, and there's no empty space here, there's symmetry in this page, right? Quite interesting, because this text actually balances out this part here. But yes, Huzaifa, is that how to pronounce the name? Wagaf, right? He has pointed out that dominance of left side is true as well. Is that even though it's not perfectly balanced, I do agree that it's slightly imbalanced. But is your eyes ultimately flow back here and you want to see this over here. Yes, correct. Call to action. Ruben Dang has a good point, which is that colors may be a bit too much. So unfortunately, so this one, yes, I agree that it may be a bit distracting if you look at it in a certain way. But to some extent, maybe the branding also. So in this case, they may be trying to show that they are a very innovative, modern, happening web company. Right? These colors seem to be very vibrant. It shows like activity. Right? So Richard says that good, but H1 may be too big. Sure. You may be so dominant that you can't really see the start now below. Math bar not is horizontally aligned and balanced. Yes, correct. This is very well balanced. The different font sizes help. Yes, correct. So this helps to do. And interesting thing is that this thing on top, I think most people want to look at it too carefully, but I have to balance out this whole page, this whole vertical side here, this left side here. Right. And yes, Haoyang has a 3D effect. Yes, because there's a drop shadow here. There's a drop shadow here, the shadow below. And then this page also as a whole, it's a gradient. How to give a bit of 3D effect. And also there's a translucency here and so on. It helps to make things feel a bit more, not very flat, right? It feels very, very pops out. Okay, all excellent points. Wow, excellent points. Thanks so much for the inputs. And last one, I think I'll just make it quick. So here's a Twitch page. Right, it may be a bit outdated already, but it basically the key points I kind of want to show is that you see how they actually fade out the video when you pop out the thing below. So when you pop out select description, you actually fade out the video to allow you to focus. And remember there's about what is at the front and what's at the back. So you see this is the foreground and this is the background clearly. Then clearly you can see that actually because one interesting thing that's quite interesting to know is that these headers, right? This is tabs, right? Actually it seems to suggest that it's scrollable because actually they're out of balance. By default, it's out of balance. So it seems to suggest that this actually scrollable, which is true, it's actually scrollable here. So it's quite interesting how that if things are a bit imbalanced, actually it seems to suggest some stuff also. So here in this case, it suggests that it can be, maybe you can side scroll it, horizontally scroll it, which is you just can. Of course, there's call to action at the bottom and the emoji. I guess they don't call it emojis, the emotes and stuff and icons. It helps as well. Right. So of course there's also the font sizes, the color scheme. Note that how there's the primary color is like this grayish, whitish stuff. The second color is like the black, and the accent is the purple. So all this is a very good balance of colors, right? That helps you with the website. Okay, then lastly, let's go into the hands-on section. And the hands-on section is very open-ended. I think I have no idea what's the outcome of it. I'm going to be honest. I think I'm going to learn. I'm going to like try do it properly myself also. So this is very open-ended. But basically, we're going to try to come up with a UI style guide for ourselves. So what's a UI style guide? It's basically like a shared documentation / record that basically tells you what should our UI be look like, right? So it records all the different like design elements and interactions and all the stuff, all the crucial elements and how it should look like and so on. So it basically standardize how the design should look like. More complicated ones will have like even talk about like hover stage, when hovering, what should it look like? Drop down, what should it look like? Animations and so on. But I think for today we'll do something simple because we also not that much time today also. But I think we'll go something simple. And here's a sample. Here's an example of how it might look like. So in this case, the style guide for Aftershoot looks like this, right? Let's try to see if you can replicate them, replicate what they have. We don't necessarily have to do exactly the same thing. Yeah, we don't necessarily have to follow exactly. We will see and explore ourselves, right, and see what we can achieve. So this is quite complex. Of course, this is an actual thing that a company uses. There are actually more complex ones than this. There are a lot more complex ones than this. Big companies have like insane. It's like they have a whole Figma just on style guide, right? And they have like 20 boards kind. But what the UI should look like. But we want to do something simple. So we want to do hands-on with Figma here. Okay. So we have a mockup. Later I'll send a link to the chat to download this mockup. But you can actually just follow me. You don't necessarily have to use the mockup. It's just a PDF file that looks like this. You can just follow me if you want. But basically you have just done up a wireframe and now you're looking to get a higher fidelity mockup. But you're afraid that your design will not be consistent, even like not just across the screen, but also within the screen itself. So now you're thinking of using a UI style guide to facilitate this designing. So here's a sample finished product. I don't think our product will look like this. It will look very different from this. So rest assured that I think we will try something different today. So this is actually product from last year when I did the same workshop. In the end, the workshop didn't go very well at the end because in the end the product actually didn't look that good. So today we'll try something different. I'll see if I can make it have a nice product for everyone to take back. Yep. And with that, let me stop sharing. Let's take okay, we have like 25 minutes left for the hands-on. I don't think we'll take it long, so we'll just make it fast. Let's take like a 3-minute break. And can we come back at like 2:35 for a quick hands-on session? I think we'll make it quick today. Yeah. Unfortunately, UI is a lot of theory and ultimately a lot of practice also. So I can't. So the sharing went a bit over time. I'll try to end on time, however with the Figma. So I'll send a link to the UI mockup. Anyways, thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate everyone's participation in this. Yeah. Download mockup, a wireframe if you are not exactly. Yeah, but make sure you have Figma. I think Figma is important. Oh, how do I send the chat? The Illuminati website. Oh wow, they improved. Is it? Oh my god, it's even worse now, I think. Oh my god, I think they got worse over the years. Like over the years, past 1 year. I guess I check it out. It's quite funny. The truth that will change your life. New world order ahead. Potential hazards. Okay. I think let's not talk too much about this. I don't want this to be a session where we share about this kind of like conspiracy theories. Okay, let me just University critic. Let me just start my Figma. For those who are using browser version, I think you can use the browser one also. You can just use the Figma. Otherwise, I'll be using my desktop app lah. Yeah. Excuse me. So I'll share my Figma. How do I see my Figma? Yeah, more or less I just have the first few things are all the files from last sessions. So let's start a new. Okay, I'll wait for a while for everyone to come back first. Like wait for a short while. In the meantime, please take a look at the chat and can download the. I'll send a link again. You can download if you want. If not, I can download also. But yeah, once you get started, you can go to Figma. And yeah, you see that there's it's empty lah. So last week I had a template, but this week we'll start from scratch. So let's start with creating a frame first. So frame is basically like a board lah, like your design board. So frame, we click frame. Let's select a desktop. Let's go smaller lah. Mac Pro 14-inch. Why is it all Mac? Maybe because I'm running on a Mac. Or okay, maybe you can click. Up to you guys. I think I'll just choose a MacBook Pro 14-inch. And yeah, I have this. Then now I'm going to drag in the PDF that I've downloaded. Then I just drag it in somewhere. Oh, okay. I guess PDF import is not supported. Let me see if I can convert it into a PNG. I'll strange. I think it might work with the web version. I don't know. Okay, I'll upload to the Google Drive again and send a link to everyone again. But this session is more chill. I think don't need to copy what I'm doing. Okay, feel free to try out your own things and see if it works. And we are just like kind of playing around a bit in a sense. So it's a new download link with PNG. Yeah, can screenshot also if you want. But I converted to PNG and I send a link again to the chat. Okay, so I have a big image here that I have. Okay, let me just maintain the dimensions a bit. Okay, so more or less I'm gonna yeah, so the same thing as always. So as for those that may have missed last week's session, navigate around Figma, you can just use your scroll bar, right? Then or you can press space and drag. Okay. And zoom in is command and scroll, or control and scroll on probably on Windows is control and scroll. Yeah. More or less that's that. Okay, so let's give it a try. So last year what I did was that I got them to start on the color scheme first, the color style guide first, and then do the design on the website. But then in the end, the web page looked quite terrible. So this year I'm trying to do something different. I'm going to start from the website. What I'm designing, I'm also doing a style guide at the same time. Then once you have finished the design for the first screen, you can use the same style guide for everything else already. So I hope that helps to produce a nicer looking website as compared to last year. So I hope that works. So let's start replicating this website first, like this page. So there's a nav bar. There's on top, there's this big image called Today's Recommended, which has this thing on top. And then because you have read this some Today's or basically some placeholder text at the rest of the items here as well. So let's give it a try lah. Let's give it a try. So we are effectively are doing a mock-up here and doing our style guide at the same time. So let's start by adding maybe let's decide on the color, background color lah. So how do we get started? Do you want to decide background color? Let me just shucks, I realized I should actually open the window and share. So use again. We're going to use Adobe Color. So let me just reshare my screen. I'll just share this lah. Yeah, I'm going to use Adobe Color. So so to go Adobe Color, you can just use this link. I sent to the chat. You can look at Adobe Color. And let's find a color scheme that we like. I used it before, so I don't need to look at the thing. But basically, you can look at explore trends and libraries. So I mean, this one I think let me look through here. Okay, library new login. So let's go to explore. Yeah, explore is free lah, right? Don't need to do anything for explore. Explore. And see, there's a lot of different color schemes out here. So every single thing, one of these is a color scheme. But you may not necessarily like these colors because I don't think I want these colors. So this part you guys can choose. Go ahead and choose a color scheme that you like. So for me, I think this looks pretty okay. I kind of want to go for a dark mode kind of feeling. So I guess I'll try this one. So it says this one's got feeling blue. Alright, so let's you guys can choose what you like lah. But if you want, I think you can scroll down and find this below. It's probably the same place that I scroll down. So basically I scroll down, middle column, you can see this one, which is called feeling blue, I think. So let's use the darkest color as the background color. So just click it to copy. Ultimately you'll copy it. Then you can go at Figma, choose the frame, and then change the fill to the color I just copied. Okay, so this is a nice bluish background. At the same, okay, so I'll wait if I want to choose a color and then add in. Give me a quick, let me just stop sharing for sure again. Sorry. So sorry for the trouble. And then I'll share again. I need to open something. Yeah, so I hope everyone has this already. So at the same time, let us try to build our color guide at the same time. Okay, I'm using my laptop screen, so it's a bit small. So you guys, for those using monitors, you shouldn't have any problems. So I'm gonna do another desktop, another MacBook Pro 14-inch, but this is gonna be my color style guide. Okay, so this is gonna be my style guide. So I'm going to start by adding that this is let me add some text here that says color palette. Right. Let me make it bold. So actually my zoom thing is like blocking me a bit. Yeah, let me make it bold. I guess I'll make the text size bigger. So we're also designing a style guide at the same time. So this is a concurrent effort. Okay. That's just the default font is okay. I think we are not gonna make it look perfect today. Then let us copy over the color palette that we have from the. Maybe we can let's see. Let me think how should we do this? This is probably gonna be our so yeah, let me think. So color palette, okay, let's just add the colors first. Let's add one color at one time. So let us do this and let us add a circle. So remember to do a circle, hold shift. Okay, hold shift. Right. And then drag and drop drag the circle and then change the fill. Change the fill to the same color scheme that you have copied earlier. So this is one color that we're using. Okay. Let us call this our primary color. Okay, text below primary color. Okay. Or just primary. Okay. Up to you how you want to make it look nice or not. I think this one I make it more open-ended. So this one you can potentially you can even have text below that says that has the color code. Okay. Oops. Yeah, for example, you might want to do something like this, right? To make it look like a bit more professional. Up to you. Okay. So that's the for the background. Okay. Let me make it look perfect. I think later on if you want, you can make it look better. Then next is the nav bar. I want to add a nav bar on top. So as always, I'll just use a rectangle and draw a nav bar on top. Quite more or less quite simple, straightforward. Make it fit. Okay. Then what fill should I put for this? What color should I put for this nav bar? Let me go back to my palette again. Color palette. Color cooler. Adobe color rather. I was thinking that maybe this color might look good. This grayish color. I don't know. You guys can choose one color that looks a bit looks good for your color palette if you're not using the same one as me. But I think this looks pretty okay. So let's copy it and paste it over here. Let's see how it looks. Okay, I think it looks all right. It doesn't look spectacular. But I think it looks okay. I think actually can make it a bit darker, in my opinion. Let me see. I'm just playing around with the colors a bit. Yes, actually a bit more on the I think we can use this. This looks okay. The effects, I think I'm gonna add a drop shadow. So drop shadow, so under effects, so under you click the nav bar, under below there's a drop shadow. I don't know. Yeah, so it makes it look a bit more looks a bit more, you see, it looks a bit more floater. It looks a bit elevated, But let's make it a bit more obvious. So let's spread it a bit more. So spread normally means how spread the color the shadow is. So spread a bit more, and blur, I think can blur it more. I think can go to 20 even. Yeah, so now this looks a bit elevated. Okay, maybe a bit too much. Let me just change a bit. The color, maybe, I think I changed the drop transparency a bit lower. Yeah, I changed the spread a bit to be lower. Hey, let me see. So straight. Why does it look so weird? Look a bit too strong. Okay, I think this looks okay to me. So it's like X is basically the translation on x-axis. So you put I put 100 here, you translate all the way to the, okay, so it's go out of the frame now, but basically you translate 100 pixels to the left, to the right, and then if it's minus 100, you go to the left. Then 2 is going how up and down, right? Okay. So I think okay. So there's a few things on document here. Firstly is that there's another color they're using, which we'll consider this as maybe one of our secondary colors. I guess we can use it as a secondary color. Or maybe it can be considered as one of our primary colors also, up to you. So I make a copy of this. Let's copy paste, I'll just copy paste candy. Copy of this also. Then I change this to be this color, copy color. So this is one thing we want to document. Okay. So that's one thing we want to put in our style guide. So people know that we have these two colors as the primary color. Both quite dark, but yeah. And then we also want to document one thing, which is the effects. So effects basically means, in this case, our effect will be the drop shadow. So for this one, we can just drop, we can just just draw a random square here. Maybe. Oops. Try again. Messed out there. Like a random square here. Square can be. And then we copy over the same properties here. So 0, 2, 20, 0, 5%. 5% is the opacity. So how opaque it is. So add the drop shadow. So I'll change to 0, 2, 20, 5. So more or less, I've documented the color. I changed it by color. Oh, actually, drop shadow is not very strong. 15 here and I change to 15 also. So basically, you are just documenting like for the developers also. So you can, if you want, you can put text here next to it. You can say like x is 0, y is 2 spread. I don't know. I'm just randomly doing this a bit. So blur is spread 0 pixels. Blur is 0. Up to you. I'm just doing this for now. You can make it look nicer yourself separately. And then opacity, color of the shadow is actually, this is a black, and then opacity is I don't need just like this lah. What's this 15%, I think, was it? Yeah, 15%. So after you make it look nice, I mean, you can like one way to make it look nice is to have make the font size smaller, I guess. To start on the spot. The font size smaller, and then maybe you want to like I think don't spend too much time on this also. Oops. Manually indenting stuff lah. Okay, it's not gonna work perfectly because it's not a mono-space font, remember? So it's not gonna look perfect. But I'm just gonna make it work for now lah. Okay, I can put the pics together. If you make it mono-space, you can definitely make it align better lah. But I'm not gonna bother for this one. More or less something like this, I don't know, can be done, I guess, to make it like so basically the goal is that you document it like this, right? When you code it out in CSS, it's very easy. Just translate this into code. And you can actually translate this directly into CSS. It's more or less CSS property. That's about it. So actually it's quite straightforward. So let's assume if I make this, I'm just gonna try, but you can make this into like a monospace font, then you can style it more accurately. Something like this. I don't know, up to you. If you want to like make it look a bit more, I think I can put here maybe make it look a bit nicer if it's like the side. Yeah, anyways, the style guide don't have to look perfect. So it serves its purpose, can it? Okay. So now let's talk about the color of the font. Color of the font probably will be white. I think white will probably be the most stand out the most. Okay, so let's add some random font. So let's call this website hello world. Okay. I'm not gonna bother with the font family and so on. I'm just gonna make it like this. Make this bigger. So remember font sizes, later we'll document the font sizes. Or let's okay. I'll document the fonts at the end. Okay. Hello world here. Okay. Then below I'm gonna put here's probably today's recommendation. Probably some will be a logo next time, but I mean this is good enough for now. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have a big cut at the front. So what I'm gonna do for the cut actually is I'm just gonna copy paste the nav bar. Okay. And we start it to be a cut. What I realized is that actually this serves quite well as a same as a cut to me at least. And more is a bit standardized. It's quite standardized. So like over here I see that it's 39 pixels to the left. So I guess it should be 39 pixels to the right. So I guess this is shorten it a bit. And so on. I'm just don't have to do until so meticulous like what I'm doing, but I'm just like doing. Then I think I don't really like the fact that the cuts are a bit too pointy. So maybe I want to increase the border radius to like 20. Actually, this looks pretty okay actually. It's definitely not perfect I think this looks it lacks a bit of refinement that proper web design will ideally have. But more or less, it serves the purpose for now. Yeah. Then we also want to have an image and text, right? So let's just draw an image quickly. Add an image here. Also, I want to have it as a border radius of 20 or so. I'm gonna drop a random screenshot into this. And I'm gonna see if I have a screen. I'm gonna drop the cat photos that from last week. So let me just download the. Let me just see my download folders and find the cat photos from last week. I'm just drop a cat photo in there. Right. I mean, I already have the. Oh, can't drop that. I copy. Remember, it's copy the. You select the photo. In this case, you. Oh shucks. In this case, you select the photo, copy, select the shape, and then paste it, and you'll replace it. You fill it up. Something like this. Okay. I like I said, it doesn't look that great, but you know, we are trying to rush through some stuff here. So. Then the fonts again, I just copy here and paste it again, and then I'll put here. So I need to have I get some to be smaller, so probably I'll put it to size 24. Right. So so the article maybe is like Ashley found sleeping on Utown bench. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Then there's Straits Times. Okay, I don't know how this is Straits Times. Okay, sure. So we'll do a batch. So like I said, we are doing some stuff here that I'm not documenting yet, but we'll document very soon. Let's add a batch. And then we want to style this batch, right? So, but before that, we let's add a text on top of it called Straits Times. So this one is a bit big, so let's make it a bit smaller into like size 14 maybe. Like 16 maybe. Something like that. Then we size this a bit to fit it. Nice. And then the background color. Okay, but let's give this batch a border radius of like maybe 10. Okay, the background color, we're going to choose our color palette again. So earlier we had this looks like definitely the best. I think it's the best candidate because this is a brightest color. So this is our accent actually. You notice this is actually our accent. So we're gonna change this text color to. Sorry, blurry. Not change text color. Change the background color of this thing to this blue. Of course, you realize this black doesn't look that good anymore. So naturally, we want to shift it to kind of like something like white again. And we can group them together if you want. If not, we can just select both and drag up on top. And yeah, then I'll add some text below. So this is the lorem ipsum text lah. So this will not be bold, it will be regular. Size will be probably 16. Maybe a bit bigger than that. Maybe 18. And then just go copy paste this over again. Yes. Okay, something like that. And we need to add a call to action below, right? Use that there's a read now. Let's say read now, right? So let's replicate the read now button as well. So actually, I think this one actually may be a bit too big. Maybe I'm gonna make this smaller than size 14 maybe. Then I want to have the button. Okay, so actually realize we are just doing design now already, but we will get to the style guide soon. So this one should say read now, right? Probably white color still, so it's fine. Now the question is the read now. Okay, correct. The question is then what fonts? Okay, so this one is font size maybe can be same font size as title. I feel can be 24. Actually, no, not a bit too huge. Maybe 20. Okay. And then let's find another color for this button. So let's see. So earlier I think we need a color that's a bit brighter than all of this. It's a bit too dark, right? So even this is quite dark. So so one way is that we can potentially make this, let's use this and paste it here. And then make it a bit lighter. Right, and then also increase the thing to like maybe 10. Then for this one, I think we need to make it more obvious that it's different. So I think I'll use this one instead, this dark green one, and change the badge color to this dark green color. Make it a bit, maybe look a bit nicer. Okay, but now it's not okay. So there's some issues with this design also, I guess. Okay, I'll make it even smaller, I think. So this one will be the extra small font size. So it's very obvious that this is not to make it very, very obvious that this is not a button to click. It's a tag, like a tab. It's like a badge, right? Or tag. Okay, right. Okay, so I'm going to be moving stuff a bit. And group. Yeah, more or less looks good. Okay, I think it looks okay. I don't think it's fantastic, as I said. I don't think it's like absolutely fantastic, but I think it's okay. So let's try to transfer. I think we won't design the bottom part. I think the bottom part we won't design anymore. But let's transfer whatever we have here over to the next part, to here. Okay. So I think we can make it very clear that our secondary colors is actually just white color actually. So we will make it such as white. But if white color you can't see, right, it's like, oh, but my background is also white, right? So you can add a stroke if you need to. Or another way is, so one way is you can add a stroke. So you can see there's this stroke section, you can add press plus and add like maybe a gray stroke to make it look not bad. Actually looks not bad. Another way is you can change the background color of the whole page to be like some like okay, this looks terrible. Actually, I'd rather have the stroke. Yeah. For now, I think I can. It's okay. Then you can just copy the thing down. FFF, right? FFF, capitalize because this is capitalized also. Okay. Then lastly, our accent colors. So spacing a bit over. So remember that you want to space things out a bit. And then last one not least is the accent colors. Oops. Accents, right? So for this, well, I don't want the stroke. I want to have this color. So this is the 344B48, which is I'm gonna just paste here. Okay, this our color scheme is actually all very dark, so I guess it's fine. We have another one here. Just copy pasting stuff right, to make it easy. And then this is the next color we want to copy over. And we have the colors, right? Next, effects, I'll shift it. Effects, I shift to the side for now. Okay. Next is the font. Okay, so this next one is the typography. So normally we want to have I'll copy paste this for now. Then typeface, right? So I'll put typeface here. Normally I'll put what's the font family I use. So for this one, I think I had just used Inter, right? So I think I'll just have this one is just how you want to make it look nice. So this one is I'll put Inter. which is the same exact font I'm using actually. Then I'll have here, I'll just put like AA. Then make it huge. 72 something. Okay, maybe a bit too huge. I think maybe like mistake something. What the heck? Why is it so? Maybe 48, sorry. Right, okay, so I put enter AA. Just to make it look good. This part is completely look aesthetic only. It's nothing to do with like, it's actually zero utility. But basically it tells people what font family you use. What's the font to use. So this is regular. And it's gonna be messier, but at this point I'm trying to speed through stuff, so I'm not really too concerned with the tidiness of the layers and so on. Okay, never mind. And then also here got bold. Then it's like bold. Okay. Yeah, something like that. I think so. This is for the font weight and the weight that we will be using. Okay, then next is then I'll specify the different weights I'll use. So first is the 28 pixels, right? So this one is this is the H1. Enter bold. So where is this being used? It's actually being used in the title here. This 28 pixels bold, and the next bar here. The next one is also this one. Is 24 pixels bold. Copy paste. H2. So then change this one to 24 pixels. Then below is 24 pixels done, right? The next is I guess the call to action, which is the 20 pixels bold. So H3, 20, then change this is also 20. So the font basically here, every one of these will be the same same weight and size as the name suggests. What's good? Hang on. Okay. Then lastly is then got last two things. So this is the regular 18. So we can say that this is is the can say paragraph lah. Inter regular 18 pixels. So let's change things a bit. So we can have regular 18 pixels. And last but not least, below is this is the tag, which is 12 pixels. So that's tiny. So this one is for more like a subtext maybe, like a I don't really know what to call it. It's like let's call it tag for now. The regular 12 pixels, then call it 12. And more or less, this tells me if I'm writing paragraph, it should be 18 pixels. This is for the developer to look at and code actually. And designers also can follow this, right? So this is also for designers to follow, right? And anything else that we want to add? I think more or less this is okay for now because we also don't have much time left. I don't want to add too much stuff. Then last but not least, let's add some final we can shift these effects here. Oh my god. Okay. Shift these effects down here. Because so that your own style guide is also balanced. I feel like this one is maybe you can shift out a bit. It's also shift out a bit. Yeah, so yeah, okay, looks good. And last but not least, I think we may want to include our own components lah. So like if you want, you can have like I can shift to a side for like Components. Okay, those one is a bit more optional. Talk about like the card, right? I can say card. Card. Okay, then you can say like tag, right? Tag. Then you can then button. So button is an interesting one. So button can be like button can be. I'm gonna smoke some stuff out now. Like make it work lah. Make it look okay. So like a button here. Right. The button looks a bit ugly, I'll be frank. But whatever lah. Not gonna be too nitpicky now. Let's just have a button. Have can be normal, right? So there will be a normal button. Say this is a normal button. Then you show like then you show we hover. Right. And so on. Right. Then you can show like, oh, when it's hover, it should be this color. Maybe I just came out some arbitrary color. Okay, then like you know, can be so it can be this like laughable disabled. Right, how the button should look like. So on. And we can say this one becomes like a grayish. Yeah, I mean, these are all possibilities. You know, thinking you can also design like a secondary button, right? So like yeah, it's okay. Yeah, so secondary button, which is the color. The fill is actually 000 sorry, FFF. But the stroke is actually the color here. I'm just gonna the things I can don't need follow lah, just see lah. This one can change the text color to. I mean, these are all possibilities. You can have like this like or your secondary button. You know, all possibilities lah. Hey, what the heck? What was that? Okay. Yeah. Once you're happy with everything, I mean, I'm just gonna resize this to match the size. So it looks a bit more balanced, right? Okay, yeah, more or less you're like done. This is your style guide. For your app, right? You can use this to kind of basically every time you build more screens. Let's say I want to add like let's say I want to add like a bottom section here also. I have more or less just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Then I copy the card over. I just say, okay, I want the card. Okay, oops. I'll just paste the card here and say, okay, then I put the card on the card like that, and so on. So basically, it becomes such that you can standardize every single design from now on. Once again, this any questions so far? No? I can ask in the chat. Once again, this is a very simplistic, simplified, and potentially naive overview of what happens. In a big team, actually, you have like a full team of people doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, okay, I think a lot of people are leaving me because like I'm running out of time as well. Let me just quickly finish up the presentation and then we can call it a day. Thanks everyone for staying until now. I think really appreciate everyone's patience. Actually, because I'm running over time every time. Yeah. So this is not what we had, but I guess there's something similar. So once again, the UX laws, you can go to this website called Laws of UX to learn more about UI UX design. You can go and look at Dribble. So Dribble is once again a place that I get a lot of inspiration from sometimes. Sometimes I just like I have some design. You have like mental blocks lah, like just come up with something good. It happens, and I think it happens to everyone. You go and see what people are getting inspired by, and who knows, you can learn a thing or two lah. And then lastly is that these are some articles you can read and potentially buy lah. And if that comes to the end of my presentation, thank you everyone for coming for this week as well as last week. Yeah. So thanks everyone for this for being part of this lah. And I look forward to basically kind of working with everyone. Feel free to let me know. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions about like UI design, UX design. If you need consultation, let me know so I can try my best to help. Yeah. And with that, I'm that's the end of our session. Thanks so much for staying for 2.5 hours, 2 hours 15 minutes. Yeah. And for the active participation just now. Thanks everyone. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Egg Wei. Dung. Okay, yeah. Thanks Hao Yang, thanks Brandon, thanks Kai Ning, thanks Richard, thanks Po Xian, thanks Devon. Yeah. Thanks Terence. I wish everyone a good weekend ahead. I think I'll just end the session here. Thanks everyone.